This is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by my good friend, Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren. Frank, how are you?
I'm okay, thanks, Dan. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, thanks. I think all the viewers out there are now quite invested in the long-running saga of your back problem. So I should ask, how are you getting on with that?
I'm all right. I'm getting there. I tore my Achilles tendon, which hampered it a bit, but I'm getting there. It just takes time. It's old age, old age. But
Getting
I'll do
injured,
it. I'll
getting
get
injured more than the boxers.
there. I don't know about that one. Uh,
Yeah. Got a big fight obviously coming up next week. Anthony Yarde challenging Artur Beterbiev. It's Yarde's second world title shot. And you've secured home advantage, which in fights like this could be very important. As a promoter, when you achieve something like that, is it kind of job done on your part and then it's up to the fighter to do the business?
that's exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. We work hard to look. You can't always get it, but if you can get it, I believe it gives you a bit of edge. It was a mandatory. It's a mandatory defence of the title, of the titles, I should say. So, we worked hard with Top Rank, and we done our deal. And what was it? We're just over a week away now, 8 days away from it, and I've got to say something. I think it's going to be an excellent fight.
The first world title challenge he had against Kovalev, he had to go out to Russia for that one. And I've heard all sorts of stories from him and from Tunde, fire alarms going off in the middle of the night, water being, I don't know, contaminated and stuff like that. Do you kind of feel like you owe him one after that?
No, I don't. That's not, I mean, I've got to be honest. If they had a fire alarm, I was in the same. I didn't hear it go off. But anyway, um, that was a good experience for me. And the only reason we went there and the opportunity arose is because I really did feel that he could win the fight, and he should have won the fight. If the tactics just weren't right, and he was like, was it? I don't know, 5-10 seconds away from knocking him over. I mean, he was just about gone, but he punched himself out. So maybe that was that lack of experience, but that's now past. And he showed he's at that level, and he showed he can give a guy similar to Beterbiev, who's got an excellent amateur record, and was a long time champion from that part of the world, Eastern Europe. He showed that how tough he is. I think he's obviously much more mature now, and I think he's a better fighter now as a result of that fight. And this could be his time. He's got the power to do it. He's a better boxer than people give him credit for, despite his lack of amateur experience. He's got a very good jab and he's got speed. So I'm not obviously underestimating a guy who's got he's got the perfect record. He's got the only perfect record in the division. 18 fights, 18 KOs, and it tells you a lot about him. But if anybody can do it, it will be Anthony. He has the power to do it, and he has to set. His mindset is really, really good at the moment.
And as we saw against Kovalev, he had him kind of rocking and rolling just before the finish of the fight. He emptying the tank was the famous quote from the corner. What gives you the confidence that if he has Beterbiev in trouble this time rather than Kovalev, he'll finish the job?
I think a couple of things. I mean, first of all, in that fight with Kovalev, on all the three judges' cards, he was in front. So he would have just carried on doing what he was doing, he would have won the fight. He was in front on the cards, and a couple of them had him well up. What do I think's different? I just feel that if he catches him, Beterbiev, I think he's going to be in for a shock. I see what happened when Callum Johnson clipped him and he went over, and he obviously come back like a true champion. But Daniel's a really good. Sorry, Daniel. Anthony's a really good finisher, a very good finisher, and I just feel that I know he's an underdog. Bookmakers make him an underdog and so forth, but we it's not like we haven't been there before with guys when we've made fights when they were underdogs. And I generally think he's got a great chance. What's he now? 38 years of age, Beterbiev. So it's all those things, home advantage. I'm just hoping, it all stacks up for him.
And Anthony Yarde, the story's kind of well known now. He's come from a difficult background. He's very limited amateur career as well, and he's been with you for the entirety of his pro tenure. How much would it mean to you if he does get the job done on Saturday night next week?
Well, I would be obviously very, very delighted, but I'd be really delighted for him and for his team, for Tunde and James and all of them. I'd be delighted for them because he's a lovely guy. You know, he is a lovely guy. He does it, and you know, everyone says, "Oh, he doesn't." People do things outside the ring, but he does. And he don't blow his trumpet about it. And he's come through a lot of adversity to get to where he's at, and and he believes in himself. He's a natural athlete. He was a good rugby player. Athletics, and I, as I say, the one thing for sure, the biggest cheer you get on the night if he wins is from me, because I'd say I'll be over the moon for him.
Good stuff. Now, we've got this chance to speak to you, so it'd be remiss of me not to ask about the big fight, or the other big fight that everyone's waiting for, which is the undisputed heavyweight clash. Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk. We spoke just after the new year, and you said then it needs to be done quickly because you're aiming for early March. A couple of weeks down the road, we don't have an official announcement yet. So what's the hold-up, I guess, is the question.
Well, I can't go into too much detail, but the both sides up for the fight, want the fight. You know, we're all of a like mind, and I genuinely believe it will happen. I don't think we're far off from announcing it. It's basically we're just there's a couple of things behind the scenes we're just trying to get sorted. I don't want to go into it because I don't want to compromise the situation, but that news is pretty imminent now.
And will it still be that first week of March? Is that still viable now?
No, it'll go back a bit. I mean, obviously we haven't got a lead up time for that now, but that's where we are.
So are we looking at April?
Yeah. I mean, we've got to get it on as soon as possible for obvious reasons.
What have you made of all the social media back and forth, like Usyk posing in his swimming trunks, calling Fury belly and all that sort of stuff? What have you made of that?
I mean, it's all good fun, and they're both at it, but up to now, nobody's been able to do a job on the fella with a big belly. And that's the thing about it. I mean, I think he made that comment a long while ago against when he fought his fellow countryman Klitschko. He said, "Remember, when I beat you, it'd be the fella that you said, look at you and the condition of your end." So no one's managed to find that key yet to beat him, or the key to the lock to beat him. And I don't think, and I genuinely believe that he will beat Usyk. But we've got to get it done, got to get completed. And I think it's going to be a really, really great fight for the fans. All the belts on the line.
What would it mean to you as a promoter? You've been in this business for so long now anyway, but to put on an undisputed world heavyweight title fight in Britain involving a British champion?
Well, if we do it in Britain, it'd be tremendous. But I think wherever it goes on, 4 belts on the line is something else. And I just look at where Tyson was a few years ago and where he is now. I think it's phenomenal what he's done. And again, like Anthony, they've got self-belief. He's never doubted himself. And again, I'd be over the moon for him too, because it's a story. They got great stories where they've come from and what they've been through.
But for you too, Frank, because there's never been an undisputed 4-belt era world heavyweight title fight.
Well, of course I'll be delighted, putting the fight on, we'll be working with Top Rank on it, but getting the fight. But, for Tyson, it's all, for me, it's always been about Tyson. It's all about Tyson, and that's where we are. He is, as I've said, my opinion, he's the best heavyweight of his generation. I think he'd been a great heavyweight in any generation because of all the physical attributes he's got. But we really all want to get this fight on. Everybody wants it to happen. And if Tyson comes through, there's some other great fights there too to be made.
Just last question on this. Where do you think it's most likely to end up?
I couldn't even tell you at the moment. With the obviously the worst, not the worst. I mean, it's the best in some ways, but financially will be the worst place, but the worst financial situation, but to be happening in the UK. At Wembley, but that's the backup position, and we're looking at a lot, various things at the moment. When we make our decision, as I say, it's pretty imminent.
Now, before we get on to Fury, Usyk, and indeed Yarde next week, there's a relatively big fight happening this weekend. Obviously, it's the competition, but I still want to ask, because you worked with Liam Smith for a long time, promoted him to his first world title, or his only world title so far. He's going up against Chris Eubank Jr., someone you know pretty well, usually on the opposite side of the ring. What do you make of their fight?
Look, it's a good fight. I mean, Chris Eubank junior. What is he now? 33 years of age, and keeps being sold like he's a prospect. And he's not a prospect at that age. He's not fought at the level that Liam's fought at. I like Liam anyway, but I like him as a fighter. He, when you look at Liam, and the level and the opponents that he's fought, he's got a better resume than obviously than Chris. He's coming up a weight, but I think he's got the tools to beat Chris Eubank Jr. and I think he'll win the fight.
And it's a fight that's on Sky Sports box office. We've talked many times about pay-per-views and what makes a pay-per-view and what doesn't. Is this a pay-per-view show or a pay-per-view main event, whichever way you want to look at it?
You'll find out if they sell it. If they don't sell it, then it wasn't. I mean, that's the end. I mean, I won't say this. Pay-per-view is the most honest form of sport, boxing. It's the most honest form because people you get your true value of what an event is worth, and that's it. We've got an event next week with 2 world title fights on there. Some really good youngsters on there. We got Moses making his debut, which I'm really looking forward to, and that's going out on subscription. On the North thing. We could have maybe gone with that pay-per-view with the amount of titles on their own, but you've got to make a business decision, and a business decision's been made. So everybody's got their ways of doing things, and some fights cannot operate without pay-per-view. That's the facts of life. And if we didn't have pay-per-view here, we'd never have been able to compete with the Americans and so forth. I mean, that's since with the pay-per-views coming to the UK, that's why we've had so many big fights on over there, because we've been able to get on been able to compete with financially.
With that in mind, then, do you feel Beterbiev Yarde is a better fight than Eubank Smith?
I think their fight will be a genuine fight. I mean, if you're talking about levels, I mean, and listen, as I say, I love Liam. Liam, obviously, at his age, is not going to be the fighter he was. And for me, Chris Eubanks is never the fighter they keep saying he is, because he's just not done it yet. I think by now his dad had retired and had about 18, 19 title fights. For me, I think it's levels, and you got a guy coming in with 3 belts. That's what it is. So you've got to think they're at that level.
Right. I think you've kind of answered the pay-per-view question in a roundabout sort of way. Before I let you go, there was a lot of controversy at the Smith or Eubank Smith press conference yesterday. I'm sure you've seen the headlines, even if you haven't seen the full press conference. What did you make of that? The board have said today they're going to be considering both men's behaviour.
Let the board sort it out. That's what they're there for. The board, that's up to them to sort it out. Listen, it's nothing you want to hear in sport. Boxers are sometimes guilty of saying things, and other sports, we've heard it in other sports with participants saying things, and they get punished for it if that's the case. But at the end of the day, it's up to the board of control. I think both the boxers apologise.
I don't know if either of them have actually officially apologised. Oh, right. I think Sky Sports apologised.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's a shame it got to that, but hopefully they'll have a good fight tomorrow, and the best man will win.
What would you do if you were in that situation and that sort of stuff started kicking off, and you were
stopped it? I'd have stopped it.
How? Yeah. Good. Well, let's hope it doesn't.
Sometimes you can get them to stop. Sometimes their mouth's gone away. But you also got to remember with fighters, for them it's you're training hard, you're working hard for a fight, and as you're getting closer to the fight, obviously you're getting there's a lot of nerves and they might say they're not nervous, but it comes out in different ways. So sometimes fighters say things they don't mean, and I'm sure they regret it afterwards.
Good stuff, Frank. Always a pleasure. I know you're on limited time, so I better jump off. But
unlimited, you mean?
Yeah, no. I'm on limited time, in fact. But yeah, I will speak to you again soon, hopefully, and I'll see you during fight week.
Lovely. Thanks, Dan. See you next week, mate.